Welcome to Fun Parlay Podcast, where we are unpacking opinions and changing destinations. I am your host, Shirley Altador, where each week we will chat about how to rise strong out of all types of obstacles that come with relationships. Through personal life experiences and discussions ranging from infidelity, trust, forgiveness, sex, heartbreak, self-love, and so much more. I am passionate and obsessed to provide guidance to every woman to create a better life. Let's dive in, pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. With me, your virtual girlfriend. Welcome back to Fun Parlay Podcast. Today we have Lorrine Patterson, who is our special guest who's going to be giving us her story and talking about her book. She was born in Guam, but never got to experience that version of island life. Her family moved to Hawaii when she was only a few months old, and they stayed there until she was 12. After watching her parents divorce, she moved to California with her mother. These experiences during her informative years helped create a lasting sense of wonder combined with a curiosity for the world around her. Lorrine, thank you and welcome. I appreciate you being a guest on this podcast. How are you today?
Thank you, Shirley. I'm doing great.
Well,
Thank you for having me.
oh, no problem, no problem. Your story was very fascinating when you replied to my request. Of course, you had mentioned quickly about your mother and the relationship. So I'm really interested in hearing about all that, and also, educating our listeners, informing our listeners, and then we're going to talk about your book. So, you could definitely start off with your story.
Yes, thank you. My story. So, my story is one to tell, definitely, which is why I wrote a book. Very colorful life, I would say. But I grew up in a very abusive and mentally abusive and physically abusive home. Both my parents, they divorced when I was young, so I lived mostly with my dad in Hawaii, but then I moved with my mom to California. And so I was kind of back and forth as a child. I didn't really have childhood friends. I never had structure. We were always moving. And my mom, from what I remember about my mom, my dad was physically abusive. I talk about it in my book where he would use the belt on me, don't move or, you're going to get more. I remember the coffee table. So my dad was more of that physical abusive. My mom was mentally abusive. And she would always, um, you know, make me, whether it was French braiding her hair, if it wasn't a straight French braid, I would have to do it all over again. Or, crumbs on the floor, and I didn't see crumbs, but she was that type of person where she would say things to, do it again. And so, I carried this. There was no love also in the environment I lived in, and so I kind of carried this throughout my teens into my adulthood.
Mhm.
But at the age of 16, I had my first suicidal thoughts, and this was living with my mom. And I didn't know where all of that sadness was coming from. I just knew looking up at the moon and the beautiful stars that I didn't want to be on this planet anymore. And so I had those first thoughts. And I thought if I ran away with this guy that I met, he ended up being my husband at the age of 17.
Mhm.
If I ran away with him, I will be happy and I can get out of this emotionally abusive home that I was in with my mom and my stepdad. But I ended up marrying a guy that was just as worse as my mom, and it was 9 more years of emotional and physical abuse. Um, he cheated on me. He, was arrested for drugs. He went to prison. I had 2 amazing boys with him, but I was a single mother left to be by myself to run a business that we had, along with trying to manage my career and finish high school. I was still in high school when I married him. So it was eh, let's just say it was like, wow, right? It's like I don't even I was mad at my mom for so long because here my mom had to sign papers to let me marry this guy. And I thought, why would my mom not stop me? Why would my mom want to give me away? And so all of that was in my head. I ended up marrying him, but it was not better.
Gotcha. Now, oh my gosh. So first of all, I really want to thank you for sharing your story because tell me if I'm wrong. I can feel like even when you were sharing this story, and obviously you've written a book, so you've surpassed this and all the healing that you went through. But there's a point where I could even hear it in your voice, where your voice changes when you just
Mhm.
were talking about your childhood. And it's still, I feel like a little like, it gives you like your nerves, your whole insides
Mhm.
change, but I can tell through your voice. Now, are you the only child?
No, I have 3 sisters and 1 brother.
3 sisters, 1 brother. My math is rusty. 5 children? Okay,
5.
5 children altogether, and what child are you? Number
Middle child.
middle child, so 2 older, 2 younger.
Yes.
And did all the children experience the abuse, or were you in a situation where you were the only one isolated?
It was all of us. We were split up. We're not a close family. I don't talk to any of my brothers and sisters because we didn't grow up together, and I
Okay,
feel like that contributed to how we don't talk to each other.
okay,
But we all did. My brother was a lot younger. He was probably the one that didn't experience it the most, but still, like, mentally, he had to see all of the abuse in our home with me and my older sister going through suicidal depression. She tried to take her life. I remember the ambulance coming to get her to pump her stomach because she was swallowed a bunch of Tylenol pills. But those memories, like, those are the memories that I remember is the
mhm,
bad memories. I don't remember going to the park. I don't remember my mom hugging me. I don't remember my dad telling me, I love you. So that's the kind of environment I lived in, and chaotic, very
mhm.
chaotic. So I that's all I knew, and so in my adulthood, I thrived in chaos, and I thought that was a good thing, but it's not really a good thing.
I know what you mean. Okay, so all 5 of you have the same mother. You mentioned
Yes.
something about stepfather. How many fathers between the 5 children, if you don't mind me asking?
We all come from the same mom and dad.
Okay, the same mom and
Yeah.
dad, but at some point, mom left dad.
Yes.
Okay, and how old were you when mom left dad? Was that when you were a child and you guys moved to Hawaii?
Yes, it was I can't remember what age, I was really young, but
Okay,
I think she had an affair.
okay,
My dad still to this day has not married, and my mom is in her 3rd marriage.
okay, got it. All right, so now mom has remarried, you have a stepfather, and from what you can remember from the earliest is 12, but the abuse started even before 12.
Before 12.
Got it. At 16, you had the suicidal attempt. And now you and I are both mothers. And this is a
Yes.
prime example of I feel like as adults we become such hypocrites. And we don't know if your mom didn't know better. Your mom's not here to speak for herself. I understand that. I feel like everybody has a right to voice their opinion, but even me as myself, and I think, Lauren, you can agree, you want to do better than what you had as a child.
Mhm.
I want better for my children than what was presented to me. And at 16, to have these negative thoughts, to want to commit suicide. Now, my big question is you and many other children have experienced this. Even now, the thought have crossed my mind. At that young, tender age, what could
Mm.
you possibly be going through that would make you wanna do this? Can you just, like, I'm assuming it was that bad that you just wanted to remove yourself. Now, was running away an option?
Yes, so after I had those thoughts, the next day, I talk about this in my book, I called my boyfriend at the time who ended up being my husband,
Mhm.
and I ran away with him for 3 months. The whole summer, I left. I planned my escape, is what I call it.
Oh,
And I ran away with him, and we lived on his friends', living room floors. We had nowhere to go. We couldn't stay at his place because he lived with his parents. So for 3 months, I was with this guy, and I ended up going back home because I wanted to finish high school.
because
So
you
I
were
ended up
still in school.
I was still in school, and so I was like, "Okay, well, it's time to go back home," and our plan with me and this guy was after high school, I would go be with him again, not marry him, but I would go live with him.
Exactly.
My stepdad that my mom was married to at the time, he hated us. He didn't want her children around, and he convinced my boyfriend at the time, who became my husband, that you need to marry this girl. I don't know if he paid him. I still don't know to this day.
Oh
But
my
he
gosh.
agreed, and we married in Las Vegas in January 1989, and my mom was there and my stepdad, and that's it. Nobody else.
Oh my gosh. So now it's 16. So you weren't pregnant then. You guys just got
No.
married, but you were not pregnant. You were still in school. And how
Mhm.
old was boyfriend at the time?
He was 3 years older.
17. So he
So,
was 19. So you both
yeah.
still are young and tender.
Oh, we were so young. We were
Okay.
so young.
All right.
I got pregnant right away, though. So I did get pregnant at the age of 18. So my son right now is 31, and he has 2 kids, so I'm a grandma to 2.
A grandma to two. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, like you said, the blessings that came to your first marriage was your two sons.
Yes.
So, okay. So now you finish high school. I'm assuming your first child was while you were in high school.
Yes.
Okay. So you finish high school, you have one child. When did the relationship issues with the first husband started?
Right away. So the I never met his parents. So when I married him, we moved in with his parents because we didn't have any money to move on our own. I didn't even know his dad or mom. His mom was in the Philippines when we married. And here he is bringing home, "Hi, new daughter-in-law." So I had to transition into a new life, basically. Like, these people didn't know me. I was just some strange girl that's coming into this house, you
What?
know?
So
His mom didn't like me at all.
you didn't even meet the parents, but yet you're married. Okay. So you didn't even meet parents, but yet you're marrying this guy. Your mother and your stepfather okayed it. You're still in high school. How many
Yep.
years did you have left of high school after you married him?
1 year. So I was a senior, but I ended up doing independent studies because I was ashamed. I was pregnant. I didn't wanna be in high school with a big belly. So,
Oh my goodness. So you went from s- so here's my question. So from suicidal to marriage, did he just feel good at the time? Did he take that feeling away from you?
yeah, basically so he was, so last year in 2020, he
Hmm.
actually passed away. So my first part of my book and my third part of my book, both of those husbands passed away within 3 months of each other.
Oh wow.
So there's something to tell you. I think the universe really knew it was time for me to write this book because for sure the third husband would have came after me about writing this book about him for sure.
Oh goodness, you would have gotten a knock on the door
Oh
about,
yeah.
"Don't put my business out there," because you know
For
how people
sure.
are like, I don't want all my information divulged." Oh
For
my
sure.
goodness. And then to
Yeah.
even say that your sister, is this your older sister?
Yes,
Went
my
through
older
the same
sister.
suicidal situations that you went to, and but did you guys talk to each other? Were you guys close as children and fell apart?
No, we were never close. And I've talked to a hypnotherapist about why I don't remember. And a lot of therapy sessions have told me because sometimes when you go through a traumatic experience as a child,
Mhm.
you kind of block everything out. And so I'm thinking about doing hypnotherapy just to figure out what happened to me because I don't know if I was molested as a child. I know that when my dad used to hug me, I used to get this kind of like feeling of, ugh, you know?
Your
So I don't
biological father or
my
your
biological father, yeah,
Oh,
and so I don't know if I was molested. I don't know why my dad gave me the heebie-jeebies when he would hug me.
okay.
So there's a lot of things in my past as a child that I don't really know what happened. I just know that I was sad. I was really depressed.
Life was really hard.
Yeah, and I carried it into my adulthood, and in my 30s, I actually almost took my life. I had a bottle of Percocet pills, and I remember that night. It was a dark, dark night in my apartment, but something said I heard something, and that's when I put the pills back in the bottle and went to go see a therapist the next day. Um,
So
but
even
yeah,
as an adult, the trauma just followed you along because you weren't getting
yes.
any treatment. You weren't able to speak to anybody about it. Now,
No.
did your father hit you or was it just your stepfather?
My real dad, my biological dad, I remember the belt. It was a brown belt that he would pull from his pants. And I knew that sometimes we knew we were going to get spanked because he would make us lay down next to a coffee table. And he would say, if you move, you're going to get more. And we used to put 3 pairs of pants on because, you get the welts from the belt, and that didn't help. You could still feel the sting. But I remember the coffee table and laying there as a child looking to the side, and seeing this coffee table and my dad just hitting me with the bulging cheek. He was just so mad. And I think he was upset because my mom divorced him. And I know that now. I think I realize that now writing my book is that my dad just probably we were a reminder of my mom leaving him because I don't remember being a bad child. I just don't know why he used to spank us all the time. I don't really know.
So these were happening during visitations. Did your mother witness these beatings?
No, no, because I was living with my dad at the time, and then I ended up moving in with my mom, and that's when, I stayed with her, and then I married and just
I
said,
see. So the
yeah,
father was physically abusive. Mother
yes,
was not aware. When you went to
yes.
go live with mother, mother was mentally abusive
Mhm,
and in ways where like it's kind of like now you tell your children, you give little chores to your children, such as, wash the dishes, mop the floor, things they can handle. And this is why, Lauren, a girlfriend of mine had a conversation because she had made a very interesting comment about when she gives her son the chores, he doesn't do them the way she wants him to. And I had to
mhm,
remind her, and I had someone tell me this as well. You have to stop putting expectations on your children based on how you want things done. And someone had to wake me the fuck up and say, if
mhm,
you are such a perfectionist and you want things done a certain way, maybe you should consider doing it. Because if you're going to have someone else do the work and critique them in such a way, who the hell's going to want to do anything? And that
mhm,
applies to your kids too. You
right.
tell your kids to wash the dishes, but yet you're standing next to them with like a belt or a wrought iron
Yeah,
stick, and you're
yeah.
like telling them, oh, look at this. This is still greasy. This is not done. I'm going to beat your ass if you don't do
Mhm.
this right. It's a dish.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
if you want it that perfect, do it yourself or figure
Mhm,
out how to speak to even your children, because I believe that God blessed us with children, and as adults and as parents, we forget that they deserve respect just as much as adults deserve respect. And we
mhm,
don't know how to respect our children at times. We speak very
mhm,
foul to our kids, and it's just unnecessarily of like, do we forget that these are human beings just like us, flesh
mhm,
and bones just like us? So we need to watch our tone. And if you can't speak to your child in a way where there's no respect, I feel like, okay, something needs to happen. But I
mhm,
totally agree with what you mean by the mental abuse from your mother, because even now I had to like catch myself. Like my daughter, she has the responsibility of the bathroom.
mhm,
She does the bathroom the way she's supposed to do it. And after she does it, I'll give like, I guess you can like say a little brief little summary. I'll say, well, we call her Booty, which is the name we call her Booty. But I'll say, just make sure, when you're mopping the floor, you get the corners and you speak to your kids in a certain way and just give them, it's kind of like giving advice.
mhm.
So I totally understand. And I can only imagine crumbs on the floor and then she's mentally, what is she making you do? Like picking them up with what?
Well, she'll get down on her knees and go like this with her hand underneath to feel. And if she feels anything, which I don't know what she
What,
was
like
feeling,
dust?
like I would have to do it again. And I even, I mean, her perfectionist behavior turned into bad financial issues for me. I know that in my adulthood because I got a job at the age of, I think it was 15 or 14 at Denny's. And I thought, she's going to let me keep my money. She took my money from me and she said, "Oh, I'm going to use it for you." I never
You never got
saw.
it.
No, I had holes in my panties and socks and it's like I had no clothes.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, well, where did that money go to? And then when I married my husband, my first husband, he took all my paychecks. I worked and he took my money. So it's like finally when I had the freedom to spend money, I had to file bankruptcy 3 times. I didn't know nothing about finances because I felt so controlled on my life that I was like, "Yay, I'm free. I'm going to spend whatever I want." And it got me into a lot of trouble.
You left one control system to now enter a second one because you left home. Now the
Yes.
husband started being controlling. Do you feel as though the first husband witnessed how your parents were speaking to you or how they were responding to you, and he took advantage of that?
I believe that he was a manipulative um liar. Like, he was a con artist. I don't even know the best way to explain him, but he just had this criminal mindset. So
Mhm.
everything about him was just like dirty. Like, he didn't do anything the right way. He ran his business operations illegally.
Okay.
He was a drug dealer, he was dealing cocaine. I mean, we would have people coming to our house knocking on our window, 2 in the morning, buying drugs. And I didn't know what was going on. I was young. I was like, why are these people coming to our house
At 2 a.m.
at 2 a.m.? And he was the supplier, the neighborhood supplier. It caught up to him. He got, arrested for it. But I was so naive. I had no idea. I was trying to balance my career. I was trying to find a career. I was in the hotel business at the time. I wanted to
Mhm.
be a general manager. I had big aspirations for myself, and I had this controlling man that wouldn't let me do anything. I mean, to the point where I couldn't wear certain clothes. I had to be home at a certain time. So it was just I just jumped right into the same type of relationship, and when he went to prison, I felt like I escaped, that I was released. So I remember that day he got arrested and he was, in the trial.
Mhm.
I felt so good, like, went to the bathroom, washing my hands, I was like, "Yes, I'm
Yes.
free." Like, I am free.
Is that what broke it up when once he went to prison? Is that what helped the
Yes.
separation?
Yes, it helped me be strong because he was always the type of guy. I tried to leave him at one point, and then I ended up going back to him because I got pregnant with my second child. When you always go back and do the makeup sex, that was
Mhm.
me. I always did
Okay.
makeup sex. So,
Uh-huh,
and
and
then
he
he
said
just,
the right things like,
yes.
"Okay, come on, I'm gonna, go to
Yep.
therapy. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do
Mhm.
that." No, you're just
No.
saying what I wanna hear.
And I fell for it, and then he would say things like, "Oh, if you leave me, I'll take your car," because he was on the car. "I won't, you're not gonna see the kids." All these things to threaten me, to scare me to stay. And I was young, I didn't know. I'm like, "Okay, well, I better stay." I was actually scared of him. I was legit scared.
I mean, I totally understand at that age, and, I talked about this, that relationships aren't taught to us. Every partner that we
Mhm.
get with, we're learning as we go. I mean, life is a risk, relationship are a risk, but it's even harder when, as a child, you're not even molded in the proper way to even know how to start a healthy relationship. There's no fuel perfect plan. You can
No.
have a perfect childhood and end up in a really rough relationship. So I'm not saying perfect childhood means perfect relationship. No, but at least give you a rough draft of what I need to do, little expectations that I need to know it is not okay for someone to talk to me like this.
Mhm.
It is not okay. And at least to have a support system. Lauren, you had no support system. You had
None.
nowhere to go.
Not at all. I really didn't have any friends. I probably had a few friends, but I didn't share what was going on with me and him because I
Mhm.
was embarrassed. I was like,
Exactly.
shame. I had a lot of shame, and I know one thing, I always wanted to be loved. That was one thing that I always wanted. But
Mhm.
I realized writing this book, I'm 49 this year,
Mhm.
and I realized I didn't love myself. So if I don't love myself, how could others? I manifested all of those relationships in my life. I know that now. I can
Yeah.
say that now. But back then I was victim, right? It's like, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I keep meeting these guys?
Exactly, because you're manifesting this stuff into your life. This
Yes.
is what's approaching you because this is what you're allowing. You felt
Mhm.
scared to even stand up because you felt as though that's all you deserved.
Yes.
Now, okay, so first husband gets locked up. Let's talk about how the second husband came into your life.
Yeah, so before I met my second husband, though, when my first husband went to prison, I felt like now's the time for me to have fun. So I was free. Not really. I was still married to him, but
Mhm.
I met a man at the hotel, and he was a guest, and he ended up introducing me to the best thing that could happen in my life, which is Nichiren Buddhism. So I practice this spiritual practice even today. And I know that that's the reason why I met him. But I had met him and he was somebody I thought, oh, I'm going to be with this guy. I was always the girl that said, oh, this guy's the one. This guy's the one. Like every guy was the one.
Gotcha. You didn't make sure you were okay. Every person that approached you said the right thing. You were like,
Yes.
"Oh, okay. This one's better than the first one, so let's give this
Yes.
one a try out."
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what is I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing nature Buddhism?
Nichiren Buddhism.
Nichiren Buddhism. When I think of
Yes.
Buddhism, I think of the monks. Am I
Yes.
thinking of the right thing?
No, so basically this practice, have you seen that movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? With
Yes.
Tina Turner. Okay, so
Yes.
at the end, remember how she gets away from Ike and she runs into her friend who introduces her to this practice where you see her chanting?
Yes.
That's the same practice I do.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right. So
so
that's the same thing. All right. And do
yes,
you talk
yes.
more about that in the book?
Yes, I
All right.
talk about it a lot. A lot of people don't understand it because they think like you, like monks, but you don't pray to a temple. It's a self fulfillment practice for your own happiness. And this guy that I met in the 80s introduced me to it. And at first, I was just going to practice it for him because I'm
Gotcha.
like, oh, if I do this for him, I was always the one who wanted to do things for the guy to make them love me more. So
Mhm.
I was like, okay, if I do this for him, he's going to want to be with me forever. so
Forever.
so I started practicing and then he ended up cheating on me.
Okay.
I don't know why I was mad. I was a married woman. But we didn't stay together, but I know now today that that's the reason why I met him was to be introduced to this beautiful practice that has saved my life. Basically, it's helped me throughout my whole entire life. And then, after I met him, my first husband got out of prison,
Okay.
and I wanted a divorce. I was strong enough to tell him and stick to it that I want a divorce. And so I didn't stay single for very long after I divorced him and I met the second husband. And I had two
The
amazing boys with him.
Wait, hold on. So first husband got locked up, met second husband that came into your life. What was it called? Nature Buddhism?
Nature and Buddhism.
Nichiren Buddhism. So
Yeah.
he cheated on you. In the midst of that, first husband came home. You were strong enough to tell him you got a divorce. Then you met third husband, or you went back to second husband?
No, so that the guy that I met while he was in prison was just a boyfriend. He was probably just a boy toy.
Oh, okay. Okay, so boy toy is now gone. You got divorced. So now second husband is okay, got
Yes.
it. Okay. So now we're talking about second husband.
Yes. Remember I told you I'm a relationship expert?
Yeah, you've experienced it all. Now, okay, so you get mad because boy toy cheated when y'all was just really a
Y-
fling.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. So now we talking about second husband. And how did you
Yes.
meet second husband?
I met him we both worked at the car dealership and I met him there.
Okay.
And when I met him, once again, I'm like, oh gosh, this guy's so great.
Oh, wonderful. What did you do to
and
make this one happy?
so when he first met me, he had a commitment problem and he actually broke up with me while I was sleeping one morning. I found a note on the table and he said, I just can't commit to you. And this was before he asked me to marry him.
Oh my
So right
gosh.
there was a red flag, right? It's like, okay, here's this guy that doesn't want to commit to me. Why am I going to even possibly go back to him? But I did. He came back to my life and asked me to marry him. And I was like flattered. I'm like, okay, I'll marry you.
Okay, so you reached out and you pursued to try to make it work.
Well, he reached out to me and then that's when we got back together and I told him I was dating a guy just to try to
Mhm.
make him mad and he goes, you're not his girl, you're my girl," and asked me to marry him and
And of course
you
that
know,
made Lauren happy.
yes. And so I was like, "Okay."
All right, let's do this. All right, so now you have 2 children with second husband.
Yes, so after we married, we had 2 boys. So I had 2 more boys,
So now 4 children, all boys.
all boys,
All right, got it. So 4 children, all boys. How long did the second marriage last?
6 years.
6 years. So now you leave him. How did you meet third husband?
3rd husband, oh boy. So he is my rock bottom relationship. That's what I call him
He's worse than 1
because
and 2?
worse. Worse, girl.
Shit. Girl, okay. So what did third husband do?
So, third husband is actually the older brother of my first boyfriend in high school. I did have a boyfriend in high school before I got married.
All right.
So, I did have a boyfriend, which I talk about in my book briefly.
Gotcha.
But ended up marrying his older brother.
So you got with the brother, and then later on in life, you got with older
The older
brother.
brother.
Wow. Okay. Girl, I see why you call yourself relationship. You just going around and around and around. Okay. So now you with brother, which is third husband.
Yes.
How were the
Yes.
family functions when you're looking at your ex that you've slept with already and
Yeah.
he's watching you be with his brother? I mean, what did he say to you?
So we met on Facebook because we reconnected. He already knew me because I was with his brother. So
Exactly.
we reconnected on Facebook, and at this time, at this point in my life, I was like, okay, I'm not going to date anymore. I need to be by myself. But
All
I was
right.
never the type of girl to stay by myself for very long because of how I felt inside. I always needed a man to validate me. That was
Okay.
me. And so I was like, oh, I'll go out with him. He wanted to have coffee. So I was like, okay, it's just coffee. It's not a date. In my head, I'm like, it's not a date. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
date. And when I met him for coffee, like, the younger brother, he didn't even care, like, that wasn't even anything we talked about, and we just, like, got along so great. I was like, "Wow, he's awesome," like, I'm like, "We get along great, everything's gonna be fine, maybe I could date him." And after coffee, he's like, "Do you wanna go out again?" I was like, "Sure, why
This
not?"
he knew who you were, right? Girl, you ain't
He
have no
knew.
boundaries, huh? You was just
He
like, oh well.
No, I had no boundaries at all, and, we got along great until his ex-wife came into the picture.
Oh
He
shit.
he had he had some let's just say he had a side thing with his wife that I didn't know about. And so that was the start of our problems. And this was before I married him.
Okay.
And she was just horrible to me. She just didn't like me. I guess apparently, he had pictures of her up in his house. His son told me, "Oh, my dad had pictures of my mom and all of a sudden they're gone." I'm like, "Oh, that's weird. I thought they broke up a long time ago." So all these things were popping up about him and his ex-wife, flirty text messages. They talked every morning at the same time. And this thing was just coming up, and I approached him about it, and then his anger issues was coming out about it, saying, "Oh, you're the one causing trouble, it's all your fault." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I think your ex-wife is the problem."
Yeah. I think I had put that post in the group about the gaslighting, making you feel like you're crazy and you're
Yes.
confronting them about something and you know it. And they're like, no, 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 you don't
Yeah.
know what you're talking about.
Girl, I got so obsessed with finding something that I would watch him unlock his phone, and I would go in while he was sleeping and check his text just to confirm that my intuition was right, which
Mm-hmm.
it was. But now thinking back, I'm like, "Why did I do that?"
Because
You
we're
know?
great FBI agents when shit like this is going wrong, which is so unhealthy and we don't even realize it at the time. Because if you're in a relationship and you got to do all that, it's
Oh,
kind of like,
yeah.
really? Okay, let me take a step back for a minute. And if I have to go through all this
Mhm.
shit, then let me reevaluate my whole relationship because am I the
Yes.
source of why am I doing this?
Yeah, yeah, and
But you
that
don't
was
realize it at the time.
No, I didn't, and I was like, "I gotta," and it became this competition with his ex-wife. I'm like, "I have to win. I have to
Mm-hmm.
win. I have to win."
Yep.
So, I just allowed all of this stuff to happen, and this was before we got married, to a point where I finally said, "Okay, I can't be with you anymore." So, we broke up for a little while, but then somehow he came back into my life, and we ended up getting married.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking, when the
I'm
third
gonna
husband came into play?
I was late 30s.
Okay, so I wanted to ask that just to say, obviously, as we can see, listeners, we don't want to put an age on this because a lot of times
Mhm.
people will say, "Oh, when you're young, you're dumb, you're stupid." Yes, when you're
Mhm.
young, you are naive, but even in our adult years, we make stupid ass mistakes.
Yep.
So obviously, age doesn't mean anything because when you're not getting the correct help that you need
Mhm.
to get, and really taking the time to self-reflect because you're bouncing from relationship to relationship. You're not even allowing yourself time to heal, to rediscover yourself, to
Mhm.
find yourself because you're so codependent on being with someone that you don't know anything else. So now you're talking
Yeah.
late 30s, almost 40,
Mhm.
and you're still going through this shit and you
Yep.
haven't woken up yet.
No, I woke up at 42. So this third husband, I call him my rock bottom because I ended up marrying him, even with all the red flags. I
Yes.
pushed him out the window. And when I married him, I'm like, I won. It became this like competition thing with his ex wife. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I won. I
Yep.
got him.
Yep.
Well, he wasn't a prize because as soon as we got married, he had this illicit fantasy that I talk about in my book. And it's called cuckolding. So I don't know if you've heard of cuckolding before.
Cuck holding?
Holding.
Never heard of that. Can you briefly just tell us what is that? Cuck? How is this being spelled?
So it's Cuckolding,
Cuck
cuckolding.
holding. Okay.
Mhm.
And what is that?
So basically, I had to look it up because I thought I was being sex trafficked or human trafficked, but he wasn't exchanging money for me. So basically, a cuckold is a man who likes to watch his wife make love to strangers in front of him. And that's what we did.
Hold the fuck. You're in your late 30s.
Yes.
Your third husband, what, is your pimp?
Basically, he was. That's what it ended up being.
You allowed this?
I didn't know. So this is what happened.
Wait, hold up. Lauren, what do you mean you didn't know?
So this is what happened.
What?
So we were, in bed one night talking about fantasies. He said, "Hey, it'd be cool is I write about this in my book is if you could, we could have a threesome." And
Okay.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, just a one-time thing, right?" I'm
I
like,
gotcha.
"Sure." And I thought it was with a girl. He's like, "But with a guy." And I'm like, "Okay, are you sure?" He's just like, "You want to share me with another guy?" That was my initial thought.
Okay.
And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I think that we could really enjoy it together, something we could do together." And I was like, "Okay." And I thought it was a one-time thing. Well, it ended up being an every weekend thing. He could never get aroused without another man in the bedroom. There were random guys showing up to our house unannounced,
And
getting in the
you would have
shower.
sexual activities with them.
Yes, and because this is why, because I didn't know my boundaries, I didn't know self-love, and I said, "You know what? If I don't do this for this guy, he's gonna leave me too." And I was like, "I need to make this work." So I would do anything that he asked me to do.
Girl, I gotta read the nitty dick. I gotta read this book because what you telling me, you a grown woman in your 30s, late 30s at
Yes.
that, almost 40.
Yes. Yes.
Your husband says, let's have a threesome, which there's nothing
Mhm.
unhealthy about that. Okay. Whatever works for the relationship, but
Mhm.
everything has to have a healthy boundary.
Mhm.
Even though you were not okay with this, you
I
were
wasn't.
sleeping with other men while your husband watched. And it wasn't the same man, is what you're telling me.
Oh, no, he and I didn't have any say in who the guy was. He would send me pictures of them naked. And just say, "Oh, how do you like this guy? How do you like this guy?" And he wanted regulars, like, "Oh, this guy wants to be a regular." I'm like,
So we're saying
"Okay."
this was happening at least once a week.
Yes, every weekend.
What
Mhm.
did you do if you were on your period? Did you have an option of saying no?
Well, at that point, yeah, we didn't do anything. But, you know, the other times, uh,
That was the only time you didn't do anything.
yeah,
Any other
yeah,
time you had to make yourself available, and this was,
yep.
girl.
And, where I thought I was getting a massage, the masseuse started feeling me up. I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna have sex with this guy." And he even got mad because he's like, "You looks like you're enjoying yourself." And I'm like, "But I thought that's what you wanted me to do." So it was just this back and forth, mentally abusive
I can
environment.
I told now it makes sense of why he was the worst of the worst.
Worst of the worst, girl.
How did you get out of this?
So
How did you even find the courage? What woke you up? How many
so
men? Wait, how many men would you say in the course? Throw me a number.
it was probably we were only married 6 months. So,
But every week, how many? Okay, half of 52 is what? What's
well,
that?
it started happening like a month or 2 after we were married, so it didn't happen right away.
Okay.
It happened, as the marriage 2
So
months in
about
or
4 or
whatever.
5, about 4 months of the 6 of
Yeah,
the weekends.
yeah.
So 4 times 4. That's a fucking lot.
Yeah, and I don't talk about all the experiences in my book because I feel like the reader only needs to know a few to really get the point of what was happening
You
to
don't
me.
need to talk about any all just one. Girl, I'm
Yeah,
stuttering
yeah.
because just this doesn't make any sense to me. But of course, this is not my story, and
Mhm.
this is the reason why I have this podcast. Because when you told me, oh, third husband was the worst of the worst, in my mind, I'm thinking, what is she talking about? You know, and I
Yeah,
see now what you're talking about. Okay, so
yeah.
fast forward. How were you even able to date? Because I'm assuming fourth husband is the blessing.
Yes, yes.
How were you able to date after this? Did you allow yourself time to heal? And how did fourth husband come into your life?
Yes. So I finally woke up at the age of 42 when I finally said, I can't do this anymore. And I actually knew I wasn't strong enough to leave him willingly because he would have convinced me and to stay. And so I left him a note while he was at work. I planned where I was going. I got my
Mm-hmm.
apartment
Mm-hmm.
and I left him while he was at work. And he was really pissed when he came home because all he saw was a note and all my shit was gone.
Oh,
But I left and I said, you know what? I'm going to leave to my beach town. I went to a beach town. I didn't know anybody. It was still close to where I lived, so I could work, but I didn't know anyone. And I said, I'm going to go to my happy place and I'm going to heal because I deserve to heal. And that's when I really started working on myself. But even in this beach town, because I still didn't learn my lesson,
mm-hmm.
and I talk about it in my book, I still met a married man who was unavailable. And I had an affair with him, but I cut him off faster. So what I started doing was cutting off these men faster to where
Okay.
I finally just said, no more, right? I started dating myself. I really did honestly stay single for a little while before I met my fourth husband.
Good.
And I just started dating myself. I started going to therapy, practicing my spirituality more, reading positive affirmations,
Mm-hmm.
everything and anything to just keep my mind off guys and happiness outside of myself and focusing internally. And that's when I met my husband. Like I discovered self-love
Good.
at the age of 42, and I met my husband at 45 in 2017, and a
Mm-hmm.
psychic actually told me I was gonna meet him.
Oh. Oh, how did you guys meet?
We met on Tinder.
Oh, one of those you pass right through. What
Swipe,
what
swipe.
made you stop on him?
Well, you know me, right? You know my history already, but I was swiping on guys, but now I would be like, go out with these guys just for coffee, and then all
Okay.
they wanted was sex. But I knew that wasn't the path I wanted anymore.
Gotcha.
So I cut them off faster. And then,
Okay.
you just keep swiping. And I stopped on him because you know what? He just had a nice profile. He had a nice smile. He wanted a serious relationship, which a lot of
Gotcha.
people on Tinder don't.
Got it.
And I said, "You know what? I want a serious relationship too." And I never gave up on love because after the third husband, I know you asked that question about dating. I actually told myself, I don't think I'm going to be married ever again. I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. Nobody's going to want me because I have 4 kids, been
Mm-hmm.
married 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to want to marry me? But
Exactly.
then I just flipped that thinking and said, "You know what? No.
You
I deserve to be
manifested your
loved.
husband.
Yes, I
Yep.
deserve it. I deserve to be loved. I am worthy of love." And when I
Mm-hmm.
started saying that stuff to myself, that's when I met my husband. And he is exactly what the psychic told me. Like she told me everything about him. He is exactly the person. And she said, if you don't meet him by the end of 2017 or the beginning of 2018, you're never going to meet him. And I met him in October of 2017.
What a blessing. And when did you start thinking about writing the book before him or
No,
after him?
I talked about it for over a decade because, as you know, some of my experiences, my friends would be like, "Oh, you should write a book. You should make a movie out of your life." And
Mm-hmm.
everybody was like so fascinated with my life. But my life, I was so sad. I just wanted someone to listen to me because I was so
Yeah.
depressed.
Yep.
But everybody was I had people tell me, I live through you. I'm like, you don't want to live through me, you know?
I get it.
And I just talked about it. And then in April of last year, I joined a virtual writing workshop for fun because I worked in the healthcare industry.
Uh-huh.
And I just started writing the writing prompts because they give you these writing prompts to do. And I just started crying. I was writing about my
Oh.
past experiences and I was just telling my husband, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I am full with so much emotion. I don't even know where it's coming from.
Mhm.
And he was comforting me. And I just, I said, you know what? I think it's time to write my book. So I just opened up my computer in April last year, wrote my book, and finished it in December of last year.
Oh, blessings, blessings. Okay. So, oh my gosh, I'm still, third husband really left me speechless.
Oh, yeah. Wait till you read the book. It's all in the book in the fourth part. Yeah. I had a book coach that dropped me because she said that she didn't know I was gonna write so sexually explicit.
Sexually explicit,
Yeah.
and this is where you just have to understand that she could have at least said it in a more sensitive way. To think you went through what you went through, now you're
Mhm.
sharing your story for it to be empowering to somebody else, and this lady now wants to
Mhm.
embarrass you and
Oh,
say
yeah.
sexually explicit. I'm sharing my story. There's someone else out here that is victim that's going through what I'm
Yeah.
going through. Just tell me that, you know what, this is maybe out of your comfort zone. You could break
Mhm.
the news to me in a different way.
Mhm.
Sexually explicit, we're all doing it. I
Girl.
mean, as adults, we're terrible. But oh my, okay,
That was it, and, I almost gave up writing my I almost didn't put my book out
because of what
because of
she
that
the comment
one,
she made.
and I
No,
started thinking, I'm like, "Wow, are people gonna think I'm a whore or a hooker or" you
n-
know?
I don't think that. I think first of all, you're courageous to even be able to walk out of that third marriage in that sexually abusive
Mhm.
situation that you were in to find love again.
Yeah.
You regained your power. That's why I call this podcast Regain Your Power, because we don't know what other people are going through.
Mhm.
I sit here and think, oh, my situation's the worst of the worst. Then I listen to your story and other people's stories. And I say to myself, Shirley, you have no idea. No idea what someone's going through from your
Mhm.
childhood to your 20s to your 30s. You didn't
Yeah.
wake up to your 40s.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I wouldn't be here today if I took my life in my 30s, and I wouldn't be here sharing my story if I gave up, but I
God
didn't give up.
God wanted you to share your message. That's why. That's why you're still here. What is your
Yes.
relationship like with your children, your four boys?
It's amazing now. I
That's
wasn't the
good.
best mom back then because I was going through a lot of
Mhm.
internal trauma, but right now, yeah, we have the best relationship, me and my boys.
Wonderful. And how many you have
Yeah.
2 grandkids?
3 grandkids.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Oh, that's great. That's such a blessing. Okay, my last message before we go. What would you like to tell a woman right now who is regardless whatever part of your story they may be in? Um what empowering message you want to give to someone right now to let them know that don't give up, keep fighting, and also let everyone know where they can find your book. It will be on the website, but after you comment on that, let everyone know where they can find your book and what they can get from your book.
Okay. Yeah, I would say for someone who's going through similar struggles, that you're not alone. I wish that I had someone tell me that you are loved and you are worthy and just don't give up because I tried to do this on my own. I thought I don't need a therapist, I'm not crazy,
Mhm.
but just because you need help or you want to reach out to someone to talk to, it doesn't mean you're crazy.
Mhm.
It just means that you're courageous, just like what you said, Shirley. Like we're courageous, we're brave, and we're smart enough to know our worth. And, you don't need a guy to validate you. You could just validate yourself.
Exactly.
And you can find my book on freeingyourheartforlove.com.
Mhm.
It's pre-order now. And what you can get out of my book is just really my raw, vulnerable side of my life. I'm pretty much bearing my soul so that I can help somebody out there who's going through similar struggles that you can overcome anything you put your mind to. And that's really the message I want to get out there. It's just to inspire someone to keep going and not give up on love, especially love. Love for yourself, more importantly, because my heart was chained and now it's
Yeah,
free.
exactly. Oh, Lauren, thank you so much for being brave to share your story, to not being afraid, to regaining your power, to providing this message to someone out there that we don't even know who's going to hear this and who's going to be like, oh my gosh, there's still hope for me. And,
Mhm.
I can still like continue to find someone for me. But as we end
Mhm.
today, I always want to give a little message that life is a risk no matter in your personal life, in your business life, right? Life is a risk, especially in your relationship. And with Lauren's message today is don't give up. Please get the help that you need. Do not be afraid to talk to somebody. I do mention there are certain things that you can't speak to everybody about, but counseling is always available. If you don't have a friend, a good friend, or a good family member that you can turn to, get the help that you need and don't hold all this stuff in and talk to someone. The one message I want to let women know is it is okay to be single. You don't need a man in your life
Mhm.
at all times. Love is great. So please don't misunderstand my message because love is a wonderful thing. But you have to be happy with yourself first. That's what's important. Happiness within yourself because you cannot properly love someone else if you're not happy with yourself. You have to know healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries. And I just want to end today again, Lauren, thank you. You guys
Thank you.
definitely go read her book because she gave you a little short synopsis of her story today, but you definitely want to get the
Ooh.
full nitty gritty of husband one, two, three, and especially husband three. I mean,
Yeah.
he toxic of all toxic. But as always, thank you for listening and voice yourself, love yourself, and be yourself. And until the next podcast, have a great day, guys. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Fampale Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or share your takeaways, I want to hear from you. Head on over to the website or join our Facebook community and comment your favorite part of the show or share your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Chat with you next week.